One of the things that I've been talking about in the sauna, as we do in Finland, and around the coffee machine and in the kitchen, like I've been asking people, when did Agile go wrong? And I know that one of the definitions of DevOps that I like is DevOps is what Agile always wanted to be, or always kind of needed to be, or it's the realization of what the original Agile principles were. But like one of the ubiquitous things that kind of came out was that when we forgot about this thing that I've said a couple of times in this track already, people and interactions over process and tools. When we started focusing more on empowering teams by giving them processes and tools, or the ability to change those instead of interesting problems to solve and ways to connect with customers, I think that that's really kind of one of the basis of this conversation that we're about to have. So I'd like to have our panelists introduce themselves. I'd like to start with Johanna.
Okay, thanks, Mark. So, hi, my name is Johanna Haliseva. I'm a service design lead here at Eficode. I have a history of 20 years as a designer and a few years in IT business. I think that's basically it in its short terms.
All right. Okay, and let's go to Jarmo.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jarmo Parkkinen. I also have been 20 years in the business, first then in usability and user experience evaluation and testing, and nowadays designing new user experiences.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And now Ville, please.
Yeah, Ville Mäkiranta, located at Tampere and been involved in software something like plus 20 years. So too long. Expertise area maybe in the software creation side and mainly on project management.
All right. Okay, great. So Johanna, you're a service designer, and can you describe a little bit, I think you call it the fuzzy front end, but like how do we get good software development started right with service design?
Yeah, well, I guess I used that term when I was describing the situation, what it usually is like when I step into a software project or a digital service creation project. It might be so that there have been some problems detected sort of to start with, and our customers probably may be asking for our help, for our assistance to get going on how to solve that problem. And oftentimes it's quite fuzzy at the beginning. So I start to roll up my sleeves and ask a lot of questions, usually at the very beginning. I want to understand more about the problem, the context, the people that are involved in the problem, who are the stakeholders, who are the user groups, who are the main users, and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And while I get digging into it, it usually starts making more sense. I get clarity, I get insight, and I share that with the customer, and then we share the insight and have a very much better ground to start the development with.
Mm-hmm. So this is not what we think of in just design, so service design. So are there some stories about from your work about how you've seen value by connecting people in a positive way within either an organization or even with a project?
Well, yes, absolutely. That is something that I believe in very strongly, to asking the users, asking the customers. I want to understand their needs and their desires and their pain points when we're talking about the service or the product that we are developing. And actually, I have one example from the beginning of my career when I was starting to design. And my first assignment was to design actually kids' outerwear collections. And I really didn't know anything about kids. I didn't know anything about kids' clothing. I was a trained fashion designer anyway, but yeah, I didn't know anything about kids or what would they need when they go outside and, jump around or something. But as I started to think about how can I approach this problem, I sort of thought about, okay, I should go to observe them outside. So I went to ski slopes. I also had a camera with me, and I took some pictures. It wasn't illegal, at least at that time, to take photos of the kids. I don't know. Yeah, actually, I asked for the permission from their parents. But anyways, I started to understand how they are moving around, what are their needs, and I also asked their parents, because I wanted to understand what would be, for example, the price scope that they would be willing to invest. And after doing this kind of design research, I really started to understand the problems that I should be solving with my design. And that's actually how I got started. Started just digging into it, and then with the insight, I got proceeded a few steps, and then with prototyping and validating the prototype designs, even then I got even further. And afterwards, I understood that without these steps, I would have, if I would have just trusted my sort of own vision on what I might think that those kids would have needed, I would have ended up in probably just wasting money and resources on terrible design that would have not worked.
I'll ask. That was really interesting. Let me ask one follow-up, Johanna. Like, did you do any experiments when you created the clothes? So you went and you looked and you took pictures and you talked. Did you do any experiments that kind of like validated that you're learning how the clothes will actually be used?
Yes, absolutely. So I drafted a few designs. I asked for feedback from the drafts, and then we actually did those prototypes from a similar type of clothing, something from mock-ups, and we adjusted them, tried them on with those voluntarily kids. I didn't want any kids to and force them to try them on.
But with kids, that's usually the case. I mean, whether you know it or not.
Yeah, that's true. But in this case, they were actually quite willing to do that. And we got feedback from the kids and the parents, and it was quite fun. And we ended up having great selling collections afterwards.
Awesome.
So I was quite happy on investing the resources right.
Yeah, when your backlog is a pile of fabric behind you and thread and needles. And, okay, so there was kind of a flow here. So I think one of the things that I've learned here is like creating the purpose. Like actually, this came from Ville. Tell me about how you learned some things about understanding, getting the right people into a project, and understanding the purpose of the project. And
well, yeah, I mean, usually when you start a project, the case is exactly like Johanna described, that we don't know what we are doing. It's the first time we are hearing of some new innovation that the customer wants us to build. And sometimes even the customer doesn't know why we are making this. I mean, why do they want the thing they want? And usually when you start to develop something, you get some kind of draft idea of the backlog and the things you need to do by the developers, for example. And then the developers, of course, happily dig into the backlog and start to develop. But of course, there's like several ways of doing things in software. So it usually helps for the developer to know why they are doing why are we needing this new innovation or piece of software, and it vastly affects to these design decisions behind the product when we know why we're doing something. And for that, for example, we need this kind of a Johanna to dig in and to take photos of kids in the playground, for example.
So, Jarmo, as a designer, like, what do you think is what is the key essence that we're talking about here, and like, how do you see the issues that we're trying to solve?
That is really good question, and I have been kind of trying to learn the answer for the last 20 years. I don't know it yet, but to me, what Johanna said, that going to see the real actual users, the customers, identifying them correctly. So for kids clothing, to me, it makes sense that both the kids and the parents are relevant there. So understanding the context of use and then via iterative methods developing something that might work and then testing it out, it really sounds right way for me to do it, to do the thing.
Mm-hmm. What I'll ask you all, like, what are we trying to solve with software?
Excellent question. To me, the most common problem is communication problem. So it's person-to-person communication that we are somehow trying to encapsulate and make a little bit more formal to make it much more effective and at the end of the day even more productive and easier to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the kind of the easier to do is the thing I mostly encounter, so that we try to make someone's life a bit better than it has been. So by creating a piece of software or new service, these individuals get something new to their lives, or some part in their life or in work gets a bit easier than it has been.
I would say that my answer is that what we're trying to solve with software is people problems, because from my perspective, it's actually about the users, the people who need the service and who need it to be usable, functionable, and desirable. That's what I would say that we're trying to solve.
Usable, functional, and desirable. Okay. So there's been, actually, it was one of the things that drove me to Eficode a bit more than a year ago was psychological safety. And that's also, I'm really happy that that's been a topic during today's conference as well. So as humans with human approaches to software, like, how do you think in terms of ensuring the psychological safety of yourself and those around you, those that you work with?
Well, I can answer that from my perspective as well, because I'm dropped from another planet to this IT business. So I was quite anxious and nervous at the very beginning, because people like Ville, I had no idea what you were talking about with all those techie vocabulary of yours. And I was like, what should I do? That should I just be pretending that I understand something and then go behind the curtains and Google it? And okay, I did that a lot, but I just understood that there is no point. I should just ask those dumb questions that I have. And I have been so happy to been asking those, because I'm not worried about asking anymore. I have learned a lot, and no one has ever told me that you're such a dummy, please go away or something like that. Everybody's willing to explain, and while they explain it to me, it's also more comprehensible for the experts as well. You know what I mean? Because if you have to explain it like I can understand it, then you will really much have to understand it as well. And it's also it really pays back for our community, I think.
It's nice to hear that you think me of some sort of an expert on this area. but for me, being in projects, it's kind of part what I do, that just like honestly recognizing that I don't know what's this about. You have to explain it to me more clearly. And this goes to the customers and the developers and trying to connect all these people together in the project. So there has to be at least some brave who dares to ask these stupid questions in a sense, because I mean, it took me several years to understand that there's no shame in admitting that you don't know something. And if you can establish a team with this kind of trust and confidence that they can be themselves within, I think that will provide much better results.
I think so.
Hi, we are Eficode and we organize the DEVOPS Conference. DevOps is not a role, it's a way to increase an organization's ability to deliver applications and services faster with better quality. Some people say that DevOps is a management science. If Agile and DevOps are not yet part of your whole organization, we would love to have a chat and discuss how to make it real for you. You can find us at eficode.com. The links are in the description. And have a great time with the DevOps Conference talks.
Like it was last year's DevOps conference where one of the presenters put up a logo cloud. And the logos of the different technology providers in DevOps is almost getting to the pixel level when you start to look at it on one screen at one time. So you cannot possibly know all of that stuff at once, but you can be willing to learn and say, oh, okay, well, Google Cloud is not that different than AWS, just for a really simple example. Yes, I'm sure that I can do that as well, rather than, some of the, especially we have in Finland, the Finnish engineer will say, no, I have not done that. And it's like, well, okay, you've probably done many things like it, haven't you? Well, yes, I can. So, but yes, Jarmo, you had a comment.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I really feel these being honest and being accepting other people's questions and concerns, because I don't know, nowadays when I, for example, accidentally open LinkedIn, I feel that I get some kind of nausea because what people are telling that they are only making successful things and providing value to their customers, and that's not how real life works. So I also feel that I can ask the stupid questions from my colleagues, and sometimes I give stupid answers, and life still goes on. And I would like, of course, to give the same privilege and benefit to end users and customers with whom I work, that they don't need to be perfect people. I just need to learn how I can improve their lives so that I can make my work, which is designing better things.
Yeah, there was something, speaking of learning things from Ville, that I think applies to all of this. It's like, I explained it again. I started to understand it myself, and then I was able to explain it for the last time. And we had a conversation with Ville before talking about finding the right people for projects.
Yeah.
Right. So would you like to talk anything about this? We do it, of course, in the house, but I think it applies to any agile software development environment or self-organized teams.
Yeah, I mean, for an individual, I think it's we're finding a person to a project. I think it's quite common practice, just like to assign someone. Well, we have this guy here. Petteri is available. Petteri will do it. But did anyone ask from Petteri that does he really want to do it? Does he understand what's it about? How well this fits in his plans in the careers and so forth. So having the motivation to contribute in the project it's kind of a key to actually succeed in the project, so that you can actually implement something. I mean, you can do pretty much anything half-assed if you're not interested in the topic, but it certainly helps if you're kind of interested in it. And to get someone to interest in the project, then we again need this kind of a Johanna to explain what's this all about and why do we need this thing, what we are trying to implement in the world in the first place. I mean, for a person, it might seem, for example, if we are developing some old legacy ERP system, it seems like really boring thing to do. But once you start to explore the project more further, that okay, this affects to, for example, 500 people's lives daily, and if you can cut 30 minutes from the database queries, it kind of improves the life quality quite a lot for a day. and can even boost the whole company's kind of a business in a sense. And once you understand that, you will have much better motivation to dig into that not so interesting legacy project, for example.
Thank you, Ville. Jarmo, there was a comment while you were speaking about vulnerability being the key, and it helps to be human and show humility, which I think helps put everyone on the same kind of level. When you were talking about it's not about keeping up appearances, but it's about being real.
Yeah, I think that it would help all of us to sometimes being able to kind of take a step backwards and appreciate where we are good at and how we can use our skills to improve the work we do with other people, and also then enjoy the results we are able to create. So give humility is good, but also give ourselves some appreciation that as technology people, we are able to create things that other people are not able to create. But then again, they can create things that we can't create. So that's kind of benefit of living in a society.
Yeah. I agree. One of the things that kind of comes natural to me, but you could use it as an actionable thing, is when people ask me how I'm doing, I really tell them. And sometimes they don't even have to ask. You know, it's like if I walk into a job interview and I'm interviewing somebody who wants to come to work for Eficode, and they say, "How are you doing?" And I say, "Oh my gosh, am I having a day?" And I tell them about the thing, and then all of a sudden, by showing that I'm a really vulnerable person in many ways, then it kind of creates space for them to also kind of share something. But
I think this is quite common in Eficode, at least. like if you're asking how someone is doing, you have to be preparing yourself that you actually listen the answer, because it's start with like.
Well,
not always, no. But I mean, usually, usually it kind of shows. If you don't look like that, you want to ask that how you're doing.
Yeah.
You kind of know that everything's fine already.
Yeah. I think it's in our culture that we don't really fake that kind of stuff. Yeah.
We don't do small talk. It's straight to business and to the bone.
We have an interesting question, I think, for the panel. Matteo Meccucci, I hope I pronounce your name with honor. We try very hard to connect value. Oftentimes, it's impact and urgency instead of the value to a piece of work. And if we're unable to do that, sometimes it's better to move things to the back burner. But it's like, would the panel like to talk anything about, because we have some human connection and communication themes here, about how to validate the value, how to make sure that we're working on the right things.
Yes, well, go ahead, Jarmo.
Please. All right. To me, seeing that your creations are being used is kind of one big thing in creating value. When we were talking with Mark, I told a story of our customer with whom I was working for over half a decade, and I was creating a customer portal to these end customers. And before I started my design work, there had been actually a really long and exhaustive study of service design study of customer needs. And the customer need that came quite strongly was that the company needs to provide their services in a more transparent way. And when we designed our first version of the system, my customer company's operative people were really afraid of being transparent and being honest. And it actually took quite many years before they could understand that actually they were doing really, really good work, and their own customers really appreciate the work they do. So seeing that the customers appreciate the work helped them to actually become more transparent, and it's a cycle then that keeps on giving when you are transparent and honest. So to me, it's again, like I said, solving people-to-people issues with the help of software.
Mm-hmm. It always comes back to the people.
It does.
Quite
That's
often
what it's all for.
I kind of had this slogan for several years that I learned from a senior colleague of mine already something like 15 years ago, that it's all about the people.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think, Jarmo, I heard a story from you at a point where if a company is very transparent about how they serve their customer priorities, and if they make it very clear that sometimes we will have to solve urgent needs that might, if you have a single point of failure in something that has a human impact versus having, multiple workarounds in place, then it might be necessary for a customer to be deprioritized a bit, because they would, if they have workarounds like transportation or something like this. Was there a story that I remember?
You are remembering correctly. So without going into names and industries too heavily, when a customer is purchasing service and repair services, a bigger customer may have, let's say, a fleet of transportation, and that is really important customer. But still, a small customer who only has one piece of transportation available in their fleet may indeed at some points be more critical to serve first, because there may be people who really depend on that one resource being available. And that actually helps then the company to gain better, how would I say, better karma points in the whole society. Also, the big customers understand that, all right, this one service person who is working in my area in night shift, they first need to go to that one place and fix that one resource before they can come to my place and fix the one out of my 4 resources, from which 3 are still operating in agreeable condition. Mm-hmm. But it's a long process, and it requires trust and communication more than management by KPIs and contracts and agreement and hiding behind paperwork. So it's not easy, but I have seen it happening, and I think it provides value both for back then my customer and my customer's customers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It can be such a barrier to feel confident enough or safe enough to be really transparent. But I can assure you that it can be very liberating. Once you start and you get used to the idea, then I think you'll never want to go back. And I think the interesting thing as well is the more you're communicating with the customer for nearly any reason, then the better chance you have at having a good long-term customer relationship. So Henry has joined. We are at the time end of this panel, but if there's any other questions or comments, or if any of our panelists would like to make a closing statement, I would welcome you to.
Maybe I just want to take on the boring task that was mentioned in the chat. With that agile principles, basically think that if those tasks are needed at all, if those are boring ones. I mean, usually there's a meaning why something should be done, and if there isn't, just don't do it.
It's a wonderful approach. But I like the idea as well of turning it into something that could be fun. Involve someone else. Yeah. Switch the context and then switch back. Prepare to do the task, but don't do it and then leave and come back and it's all ready for you. All you have to do is start. There's lots of different things there.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other words, Johanna or Jarmo?
Well, I suppose that if I just summarize what we have been talking about, it's actually our job to make sure that the development money is spent on developing the right things. Each one of us is actually responsible on doing that, and we all have our share on that. But no, we're heading for always delivering something valuable, and this is how we do it.
Right. Nothing to add there. As a UX designer, I like to take what service design provides and turn it into wireframes and illustrations.
All right.
Thanks a lot from.
Thank you.
Yeah, for everyone. It's been a pleasure to listen in, and I think very good points and very interesting things you've mentioned. So thanks from my behalf. Do you want to, Mark, still say something about it?
I'd also like to thank the interaction of the audience. It was a joy to be able to discuss openly with you, and I hope that you also enjoy the next presentation. And thanks again for the humans of Eficode for joining this panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.